Hello everybody, Chris Smartage, Brotherhood of Light Show Current YouTube channel. And this week we're going to be covering on our 60s rock review show the first three big rock events that happened in the late 1960s. So let's check it out. All right, here's our show. The origin of the rock festival, the big three, where it all began. And as far as I know, these are the three kind of big original rock concerts, rock festivals that happened and created the modern day rock festival as we know it today. And the first one is the Trips Festival, which happened in 1966. And then in 1967, we had the Human Being, or the Gathering of the Tribes. And then in June of 67, we had the Monterey Pop Festival, and that's kind of like a modern day rock festival as we know it. So let's get into the next slide here. So as far as festivals go, the Dixieland Jazz Festival in 1951, from what I could find in New Orleans, was probably one of the first festivals. And then definitely in Monterey Jazz Festival, which still happens to today. Here's a picture of the Monterey Jazz Festival in 1958, and there's a poster up there on the right. So I just want to give credit because these are not rock festivals, but they're the first festivals. But we're going to get into the first three big events that created rock festivals as we know them today. So here is the Trips Festival, San Francisco, 1966 at Longshoremen's Hall. And it happened in January 21st, 22nd, 23rd. So this is a 3-day festival, which there had been some, rock concerts with, like I saw the Beatles at the Cow Palace, or Bill Graham had done some things at the Fillmore a little bit previous to this. But this is really a first 3-day festival where it had multiple things going on. Now, this festival is not necessarily a music festival. It's a music, art, and happening. And so you had things like the acid test. So people were expecting some psychedelic experience when they got there. There was going to be, as advertised, a crazy light show. There was going to be gymnasts. There was going to be dancers. There was going to be poets. There's going to be plays. There's going to be music, and it's going to be happening. And people came in costume, and their faces were painted, and they were expecting a wild time. Now, I remember hearing the ads for it on the radio, on the FM radio, when I was a kid. And they talked about the light show, and that had never really happened before. And then if you can see this poster right above me here, if you saw this, and the poster on the left, you saw this poster, none of the artwork of the day was like this. So it was like, oh my God, what is this? This is really wild looking. I want to check this out. I mean, it was like, it was like the world was introduced to like Pink Floyd style art or something. So there was a real curiosity to it, and there's a picture up there on the left where there's the event in Longshoremen's Hall, and then there is one of the bands that played there, the Grateful Dead. So Jorma from Jefferson Airplane, I saw an interview with him recently, and he said 1965, everything was black and white, and in 1966 or 67, it turned Technicolor. And I pretty much explains what happened here at the Trips Festival. So this guy Stuart Brand on the left was kind of one of the main organizers. He went on to do the Whole Life magazine, Whole Earth catalog, which is kind of like a precursor to internet. It was like where you could look up and find interesting things that weren't like in the Sears catalog. At any rate, and then Ken Kesey was known for his acid test. He's He's a well-known writer who wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest. And so here is the band playing, and first, one of the first psychedelic light shows in a huge setting. Now there's probably 2,000 to maybe 3,000 people that attended this thing, and it was, they were supposedly psychedelic ice cream. And so as you can see, there's kind of the wild crowd going crazy, dancing, and light shows projected on them, and it was just a really wild event. So hopefully this page captures that concept. So there's Ken Kesey again, and here is pictures of the event. You can see it's packed. They had all kinds of colorful flags and the light show screen, and there's a psychedelic audience, and there's the Ken Kesey Crazy Tower, and Ken Babb's up there, and they had all kinds of weird audio, experimental microphones and echo chambers, and the band was playing but also was affected by this weird audio. They had an American Indian thing, they had dancers, they had Chinese New Year drag, and they had all kinds of stuff. So it was more along the lines of like Burning Man than your traditional rock concert festival. And this up here in the left-hand corner is a documentary that was done by Eric Christensen. And here is, I'm going to hold it up right here if you can see it. And it's good. It's like 60 minutes long, and it has Peter Coyote as a narrator. And Eric did a great job, and pretty much explains it. You can get it on DVD, so check it out. And so the Trips Festival was really, it's compared to the modern day rave, or even Coachella, or where they have a lot of special event, cool buildings to trip out on, or more than one stage, or or on Burning Man, where people go out in the desert to have fun and experience this wild art, and the audience is very participant. So this was the same type of festival. So it's funny to see that it was more not really about the music, but the music I think drove the thing. And Big Brother and the Holding Company, Grateful Dead played there. So I think the music was a big part to go along with the psychedelic experience. So we're going to go to the next one. So basically, Bill Graham continued to do concerts at the Fillmore and with the light show. So it was kind of a toned down Trips Festival every weekend. But about a year later, they decided to do the Human Being in Golden Gate Park, San Francisco, on January 14th. Again, they called it the Human Being, or the Gathering of the Tribe. And so basically what it was about was we were going to get a bunch of people together and do a giant outdoor a concert. And there was going to be speakers and poets and that sort of thing. And but it was more going to be, not necessarily political, but more of like just a fun event to see if everybody could gather. So there's two the bands that played there were Jefferson Airplane, Big Brother and Holding Company, Grateful Dead, Quicksilver Messenger, and Blue Cheer. So two members of these bands, I've heard interviews with them, Bill Kreutzmann from the Grateful Dead and Dickie Peterson of Blue Cheer. So they're both walking up through Speedway Meadows. There's a trail that comes up, and then it pops up into the rim around the polo field, which you can see in the back of this picture. And they both tell the same story. When they walked up that trail and they looked over in the polo field, this is what they saw. They saw 30,000 people. And, the Fillmore had held 1,500 at the most. So, to see 30,000 people, freaks in early in 1967, it was a big movement. And so, I'll get to the next page. So Allen Ginsberg spoke, and Timothy Leary spoke, and the famous statement, turn on, tune out, and drop out, is what he said. And Osley supplied a batch of his White Lightning, and that's what he meant by Osley was out, and he's the guy in the bottom here. He was out to turn on the world, and he supplied White Lightning to all the different tribe leaders that had come from the East Coast and Oregon and Colorado and all over California. And so they were surprised that there was 30,000 freaks that showed up to this thing, and it was the beginning of the giant outdoor rock concert. So there's Rock Scully on the left, and there's Grateful Dead up top playing color photos, and there's some guys turning on to Osley's White Lightning, and there was a general consensus that this was going to be a new happening, movement in the youth movement, and this was turned everybody on, and then. We continued they continued, these people all lived. This is really close to the Haight-Ashbury where this event happened. So this was really a big thing. Now here's a picture of the Grateful Dead playing actually at the event. And there's backstage with a friend of mine, Herbie, over there on the left. And here's the Oracle, which was the cover of the Oracle, local Haight-Ashbury newspaper. And there it is, the gathering of the tribes and the human being. So there's the artwork, and it's the one where it all began. And the culmination of all the San Francisco bands and the Los Angeles music scene kind of happened here, and the Mamas and Papas decided to put together this festival in between San Francisco and Los Angeles. And there's Papa John there and Lou Adler in the middle picture. And they were the two guys that put the thing on, and that was their idea. And so they put together the Monterey Pop Festival, June 16th, 17th, 18th, and 1967. So in the summer, beginning of the summer, there's the festival, and here's the bands that played there. The International Pop Festival, Simon and Garfunkel, the Byrds, Jefferson Airplane, Eric Burdon and the Animals, the Grateful Dead, the Who, Jimi Hendrix, the Mamas and the Papas, Otis Redding, Buffalo Springfield. So, and then there was a bunch of other bands that played besides them in the 3-day festival. So there they are. They're the promoters who put it on. I wanted to make sure they get some credit. And let's check out the next slide. So here we go. Now you can tell there's like 15,000 people at this thing. Fairgrounds is full. And they were introduced to some of the greatest rock bands. And let's get to them the next page here. So we got on the left Big Brother and the Holding Company with Janis Joplin. And then we have the Jefferson Airplane with Gray Slick and Yorma on the red guitar. We got Otis Redding on the left. And we've got the Grateful Dead in the center. Phil Lesh, Jerry Garcia. And then we got the Who smashing all their equipment. And they were one of the more impactful bands that played the event. So Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones and his date or girlfriend were there, and they were checking out Janis Joplin, and she just blew the place away with her rendition of Ball and Chain, and pretty much made her career, blew up from Monterey, and a lot of bands got signed out of there, but her performance was one of the exceptions. So there was Quicksilver, the Byrds, the Who, smashing their gear, Buffalo Springfield, Jefferson Airplane, Country Joe and the Fish, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Simon and Garfunkel. And there's the poster from Monterey right there. And June 16, 17. And now this festival, once it went out and everybody heard about the Monterey Pop Festival and they heard about Haight-Ashbury, the Summer of Love just totally exploded in San Francisco, and it was really crazy. So here we go. We got The Who, Peter Townsend smashing his guitar, Jimi Hendrix, and Janis Joplin. There were the three standout performances. We got Brian Jones and Jimi Hendrix there. And Hendrix did an amazing set, and he finale'd with burning his guitar, which you can see here. And this picture on the right is probably one of the most classic rock and roll shots ever. And he lit the place up. He blew the place up. He just lit the world on fire from this performance at Monterey. And they filmed the whole thing, and you can get it on DVD now. And it's but his performance, you can also get solo, Jimmy in Monterey, and then Otis Redding also was on there. So they were supposed to make a television show out of it, but they never did it. It ended up being a 16 millimeter movie, and then released on home video, a DVD. And I don't know if you can get it on Blu-ray, but definitely you can get it on DVD, and you get all the performances with everybody else that's in the show too. So there was like Paul Butterfield, Quicksilver, Country Joe and the Fish, all kinds of other bands. Let's check them out real quick here. So we're going to go back to the Monterey Jazz Festival today, and there's their logo, and there it is. There's the setup nowadays, and you can see they got a great stage set up. They got video screens, and the Jazz Festival's been going on for 60 some odd years. And so I just wanted to, give it credit, because it's kind of what started festivals in general. But the rock festival concept was started by the three shows that I showed you. But you got to give credit where credit's due. So the Monterey Jazz Festival is still a wonderful thing to check out. And they're real purist jazz too. They don't mix it with rock. And then here is the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, which is still going on also. And this thing is massive. There's 100,000 people. It's a 2-week event. It's like 3 days, 3 weekend days, and then they take the week off, and then another 3 weekend days. And it has jazz musicians and a lot of Zydeco and New Orleans style music, but it also has all the contemporary rock people are there, and it's become kind of one of the greatest festivals everybody goes to in April. And here's the poster from this year coming up, April 28th through May 7th, and there's the advertisement for next year's Jazz Fest. But remember, it's sponsored by Shell Oil. But, Shell Oil drives the Gulf Coast. So, everything's gone corporate. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in because you can't get away from that logo. But anyway, the Jazz Fest is really happening. A lot of people go to it. It's a daytime thing. And then there's all kinds of other events that happen all over the city in different indoor venues. So it's just 2 weeks of solid music in New Orleans. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that show, and please subscribe. Check out my channel. I've got all kinds of 60s music reviews, movie and soundtrack reviews, and then all kinds of psychedelic and rock bands in there from that era. That's what I specialize in, and all of them have slideshows, so please check it out. Please subscribe if you got a chance. So anyway, signing off. See you next show.